Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
A hollow cylindrical shape. A tube with a small bowl at one end, used for smoking tobacco. A long tube made of metal or plastic that is used to carry water or oil or gas, etc. Utter a shrill cry. The flues and stops on a pipe organ. A tubular wind instrument. Play on a pipe. Pipe a tune. Transport by pipeline. Pipe oil, water, and gas into the desert. Trim with piping. Pipe the skirt. A hollow cylindrical shape. Anatomy: any hollow cylindrical body structure. An electric railway operating below the surface of the ground, usually in a city. In Paris, the subway system is called the metro, and in London it is called the tube, or the underground. Conduit consisting of a long hollow object, usually cylindrical, used to hold and conduct objects or liquids or gases. Electronic device consisting of a system of electrodes arranged in an evacuated glass or metal envelope. Convey in a tube. Inside Paris, they used to tube mail. Place or enclose in a tube. Provide with a tube or insert a tube into. Ride or float on an inflated tube. We tubed down the river on a hot summer day. A tube with a small bowl at one end, used for smoking tobacco. A long tube made of metal or plastic that is used to carry water or oil or gas, etc. A fee charged for the use of pipes. Used of heat, extremely. The casserole was piping hot. A long tube made of metal or plastic that is used to carry water or oil or gas, etc. A thin strip of covered cord used to edge hems. Playing a pipe or the bagpipes. Utter a shrill cry. Begin to play or sing. Sharp piercing cry. A high-pitched noise resembling a human cry. Utter a shrill cry. Having or emitting a high-pitched and sharp tone or tones. A shrill whistle. Being sharply insistent on being heard. Shrill criticism. Utter a shrill cry. Of colors that are bright and gaudy. A shrill turquoise. The flues and stops on a pipe organ. The flues and stops on a pipe organ. A chamber within which piston moves. A cylindrical container for oxygen or compressed air. A solid bounded by a cylindrical surface and two parallel planes, the bases. A surface generated by rotating a parallel line around a fixed line. Conduit consisting of a long hollow object, usually cylindrical, used to hold and conduct objects or liquids or gases. Utter a sudden loud cry. I yelled to her from the window but she couldn't hear me. Utter or declare in a very loud voice. You don't have to yell. I can hear you just fine. A loud utterance of emotion, especially when inarticulate. A yell of pain. A loud utterance, often in protest or opposition. A joke that seems extremely funny. Utter a sudden loud cry. Sharp piercing cry. Her screaming attracted the neighbors. A high-pitched noise resembling a human cry. He heard the scream of the brakes. Utter or declare in a very loud voice. Make a loud, piercing sound. Fighter planes are screaming through the skies. Utter a sudden loud cry. A small valley between mountains. Complain. What was he hollering about? A very loud utterance, like the sound of an animal. Shout out. He hollered out to surrender our weapons. Utter a sudden loud cry. Utter aloud, often with surprise, horror, or joy. I'm here, the mother shouted when she saw her child looking lost. Use foul or abusive language towards. The angry mother shouted at the teacher. A loud utterance, often in protest or opposition. Utter in a loud voice. Talk in a loud voice, usually denoting characteristic manner of speaking. My grandmother is hard of hearing, you'll have to shout. Utter a sudden loud cry. Utter in a very loud voice. Utter a sudden loud cry. Make high-pitched, whiny noises. Blow in a squall. When it squalls, a prudent sailor reefs his sails. Sudden violent winds, often accompanied by precipitation. Utter a sudden loud cry. Utter aloud, often with surprise, horror, or joy. Shed tears because of sadness, rage, or pain. A slogan used to rally support for a cause. A cry to arms. A loud utterance of emotion, especially when inarticulate. A cry of rage. A loud utterance, often in protest or opposition. Proclaim or announce in public. Before we had newspapers, a town crier would cry the news. A fit of weeping. Had a good cry. Bring into a particular state by crying. Demand immediate action. This situation is crying for attention. The characteristic utterance of an animal. Utter a characteristic sound. The cat was crying. Assign a specified, usually proper name to. Make a prediction about. Tell in advance. Order, request, or command to come. She was called into the director's office. Utter a sudden loud cry. Pay a brief visit. The mayor likes to call on some of the prominent citizens. The option to buy a given stock, or stock index or commodity future, at a given price before a given date. A demand by a broker that a customer deposit enough to bring his margin up to the minimum requirement. A demand especially in the phrase. The call of duty. A telephone connection. She reported several anonymous calls. A loud utterance, often in protest or opposition. Greet, as with a prescribed form, title, or name. She calls him by first name. Demand payment of a loan. Give the calls to the dancers for a square dance. Get or try to get into communication with someone by telephone. I tried to call you all night. The characteristic sound produced by a bird. Make a demand, as for a card or a suit or a show of hands. He called his trump. A brief social visit. Senior professors' wives no longer make afternoon calls on newcomers. A demand for a show of hands in a card game. After 2 raises there was a call. An instruction that interrupts the program being executed. Pascal performs calls by simply giving the name of the routine to be executed. A request. Many calls for Christmas stories. Ascribe a quality to or give a name of a common noun that reflects a quality. He called me a bastard. A special disposition, as if from a divine source, to pursue a particular course. A visit in an official or professional capacity. The pastor's calls on his parishioners. Call a meeting. Invite or command to meet. The 1C conference was called to discuss the final solution. Challenge somebody to make good on a statement, charge with or censure for an offense. He deserves to be called on that. Challenge the sincerity or truthfulness of. Call the speaker on a question of fact. Consider or regard as being. I would not call her beautiful. Declare in the capacity of an umpire or referee. Call a runner out. Indicate a decision in regard to. Call balls and strikes behind the plate. Lure by imitating the characteristic call of an animal. Make a stop in a harbor. The ship will call in Honolulu tomorrow. Order or request or give a command for. The unions called a general strike for Sunday. Order, summon, or request for a specific duty or activity, work, role. He was already called 4 times for jury duty. Read aloud to check for omissions or absentees. Require the presentation of for redemption before maturation. Rouse somebody from sleep with a call. I was called at 5 a.m. this morning. Send a message or attempt to reach someone by radio, phone, etc. Make a signal in order to transmit a message. Hawaii is calling. Sports, the decision made by an umpire or referee. He was ejected for protesting the call. Stop or postpone because of adverse conditions, such as bad weather. Call a football game. Utter a characteristic note or cry. Blue jays called to one another. Utter in a loud voice or announce. He called my name. Utter a sudden loud cry. A very loud utterance, like the sound of an animal. Cry hollow. Encourage somebody by crying hollow. A musical instrument in which the sound is produced by an enclosed column of air that is moved by bellows or the human breath. Raise or haul up with or as if with mechanical help. Catch the scent of. Get wind of. A reflex that expels intestinal gas through the anus. Form into a wreath. Empty rhetoric or insincere or exaggerated talk. That's a lot of wind. Arrange or coil around. To move or cause to move in a sinuous, spiral, or circular course. The river winds through the hills. Extend in curves and turns. The road winds around the lake. The act of winding or twisting. He put the key in the old clock and gave it a good wind. A musical instrument in which the sound is produced by an enclosed column of air that is moved by bellows or the human breath. Air moving, sometimes with considerable force, from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure. Trees bent under the fierce winds. Coil the spring of some mechanical device by turning a stem. Wind your watch. An indication of potential opportunity. A tendency or force that influences events. The winds of change. Breath. The collision knocked the wind out of him. Contend against an opponent in a sport, game, or battle. Princeton plays Yale this weekend. Pretend to have certain qualities or state of mind. She plays deaf when the news are bad. Manipulate manually or in one's mind or imagination. She played nervously with her wedding ring. A dramatic work intended for performance by actors on a stage. He wrote several plays but only one was produced on Broadway. The act using a sword, or other weapon, vigorously and skillfully. A weak and tremulous light. The play of light on the water. Gay or light-hearted recreational activity for diversion or amusement. It was all done in play. Activity by children that is guided more by imagination than by fixed rules. Freud believed in the utility of play to a small child. Consider not very seriously. She plays with the thought of moving to Tasmania. Cause to happen or to occur as a consequence. Play a joke. Replay, as a melody. She played the third movement very beautifully. Game. The activity of doing something in an agreed succession. It is still my play. Perform on a stage or theater. She acts in this play. Stake on the outcome of an issue. She played all her money on the dark horse. An attempt to get something. They made a futile play for power. A deliberate coordinated movement requiring dexterity and skill. The runner was out on a play by the shortstop. Engage in recreational activities rather than work. Occupy oneself in a diversion. On weekends I play. Cause to emit recorded audio or video. I'll play you my favorite record. Movement or space for movement. There was too much play in the steering wheel. Behave carelessly or indifferently. The removal of constraints. They gave full play to the artist's talent. Engage in an activity as if it were a game rather than take it seriously. They played games on their opponents. The act of playing for stakes in the hope of winning, including the payment of a price for a chance to win a prize. There was heavy play at the blackjack table. Verbal wit or mockery, often at another's expense but not to be taken seriously. In games or plays or other performances, the time during which play proceeds. Rain stopped play in the fourth inning. Play a role or part. Gielgud played Hamlet. Act or have an effect in a specified way or with a specific effect or outcome. This factor played only a minor part in his decision. A preset plan of action in team sports. The coach drew up the plays for her team. A state in which action is feasible. The ball was still in play. A theatrical performance of a drama. The play lasted 2 hours. Be at play. Be engaged in playful activity. Amuse oneself in a way characteristic of children. The kids were playing outside all day. Behave in a certain way. Play safe. Be performed or presented for public viewing. What's playing in the local movie theater? Bet or wager, money. He played $20 on the new horse. Cause to move or operate freely within a bounded space. The engine has a wheel that is playing in a rack. Discharge or direct or be discharged or directed as if in a continuous stream. Play water from a hose. Emit recorded sound. The tape was playing for hours. Employ in a game or in a specific position. They played him on first base. Exhaust by allowing to pull on the line. Play a hooked fish. Make bets. Play the casinos in Trouville. Move or seem to move quickly, lightly, or irregularly. The spotlights played on the politicians. Participate in games or sport. We played hockey all afternoon. Perform music on a musical instrument. He plays the flute. Perform on a certain location. The prodigy played Carnegie Hall at the age of 16. Play on an instrument. The band played all night long. Pretend to be somebody in the framework of a game or playful activity. Let's play like I am mommy. Put a card or piece into play during a game, or act strategically as if in a card game. He is playing his cards close to his chest. Shoot or hit in a particular manner. She played a good backhand last night. Use or move. I had to play my queen. Use to one's advantage. She plays on her client's emotions. Utilization or exercise. The play of the imagination. The act of moving something from one location to another. Hold spellbound. A mechanism that transports magnetic tape across the write heads of a tape playback recorder. Something that serves as a means of transportation. A state of being carried away by overwhelming emotion. Move while supporting, either in a vehicle or in one's hands or on one's body. The commercial enterprise of moving goods and materials. Transport commercially. Send from one person or place to another. An exchange of molecules, and their kinetic energy and momentum, across the boundary between adjacent layers of a fluid or across cell membranes. Move something or somebody around, usually over long distances. Make more beautiful. Be beautiful to look at. Make more attractive by adding ornament, color, etc. Beautify yourself for the special day. Be beautiful to look at. Provide with decoration. Make more attractive by adding ornament, color, etc. Award a mark of honor, such as a medal, too. He was decorated for his services in the military. Add details to. Make more beautiful. Be beautiful to look at. Make more attractive by adding ornament, color, etc. A period of time past the deadline for fulfilling an obligation during which a penalty that would be imposed for being late is waived, especially an extended period granted as a special favor. The payment had originally been due on April 1st, but we had a grace period which expired in June. A short prayer of thanks before a meal. Their youngest son said grace. A sense of propriety and consideration for others. A place where the company of others must be accepted with good grace. Christian theology. The free and unmerited favor or beneficence of God. God's grace is manifested in the salvation of sinners. Be beautiful to look at. Make more attractive by adding ornament, color, etc. Christian theology. A state of sanctification by God. The state of one who is under such divine influence. The conception of grace developed alongside the conception of sin. Elegance and beauty of movement or expression. A beautiful figure which she used in subtle movements of unparalleled grace. A disposition to kindness and compassion. The victor's grace in treating the vanquished. Greek mythology. One of three sisters who were the givers of beauty and charm. A favorite subject for sculptors. Something used to beautify. Make more attractive by adding ornament, color, etc. Be an ornament to. Stars ornamented the Christmas tree. Be beautiful to look at. Flowers adorned the tables everywhere. Make more attractive by adding ornament, color, etc. Furnish with power or authority. Of kings or emperors.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.